Birds of all feathers, thank you for joining me. This is Bertrand Russell, a human male born in 1872 who made important contributions to the philosophy, mathematics and literature of his species. He is considered to be one of the founders of analytic philosophy and co-authored Principia Mathematica, a seminal work on the foundations of logic and mathematics. Russell was arrested by British authorities for giving pacifist lectures during World War I and was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1950 for his humanitarian writings. In 1954, a Japanese fishing boat with 23 men aboard was contaminated with radiation from the United States Castle Bravo nuclear weapons test at the Bikini Atoll test site. The following is an extract from a speech given by Bertrand Russell later that year, translated into modern Sparrowese, calling for peace and nuclear disarmament to avoid the extinction of his species. Before we start, only 0% of the people who watch my videos are subscribed, and while this is my first video and I have no views, it still hurts my feelings, so please subscribe. The purpose of this channel is to practice my oratory, so if you have any advice on how I can improve my speaking style, please leave it in the comments below. I'm speaking on this occasion not as a Briton, not as a European, not as a member of a Western democracy, but as a human being, a member of the species Homo sapiens, whose continued existence is in doubt. Our world is full of conflicts: Israel and Palestine, India and Pakistan, colonial powers and Africans, and overshadowing all minor conflicts, the titanic struggle between communism and anti-communism. Almost everybody who is politically conscious has strong feelings about one or more of these issues, but I want you, if you can, to set aside such feelings for the moment and consider yourself only as a member of a biological species which has had a remarkable history and whose disappearance none of us can desire. I will try not to say a single word that would appeal to one group more than another. We are all equally in peril, and if the peril is understood, there is hope that we may collectively avert it. We have to learn to think in a new way. There is no point in asking ourselves what steps can be taken to achieve military victory for our preferred group, as such steps no longer exist. The question we have to ask ourselves is, what steps can be taken to prevent a war that will destroy us all? The general public, and even many people in positions of authority, have not realized what would be involved in a war with hydrogen bombs. The general public still thinks in terms of the obliteration of cities. It is understood that the new bombs are more powerful than the old, and that while one atomic bomb could obliterate Hiroshima, one hydrogen bomb could obliterate the largest cities such as London, New York and Moscow. No doubt, in a hydrogen bomb war, great cities would be obliterated. But this is one of the minor disasters that we would face in such a war. If everybody in London, New York and Moscow were exterminated, the world might, over the course of a few centuries, recover from the blow. But we now know, especially since the Bikini test, that hydrogen bombs can gradually spread destruction over a much wider area than had previously been thought. It is stated on very good authority that a bomb can now be manufactured which will be 25,000 times as powerful as that which destroyed Hiroshima. Such a bomb, if exploded near the ground or underwater, sends radioactive particles into the upper air. These sink gradually and reach the surface of the earth in the form of a deadly dust or rain. It was this dust which infected the Japanese fishermen and their catch of fish, although they were outside what American experts believed to be the danger zone. No one knows how widely such lethal, radioactive particles might be spread, but the best authorities are unanimous in saying that a war with hydrogen bombs is quite likely to put an end to the human race. It is feared that if many hydrogen bombs are used, there will be universal death. Sudden only for a fortunate minority, but for the majority, a slow torture of disease and disintegration. Here, then, is the problem which I present to you. stark and dreadful and inescapable. Shall we put an end to the human race, or shall humankind renounce war? People will not face this alternative because it is so difficult to abolish war. The abolition of war will demand distasteful limitations on national sovereignty. But what may prevent us from understanding the situation more than anything else is that the term humankind feels vague and abstract. People scarcely imagine that the danger is to themselves and their children and their grandchildren, and not just to a dimly apprehended humanity. And so, they hope that perhaps war may be allowed to continue, provided modern weapons are prohibited. I'm afraid this hope is illusory. Whatever agreements not to use hydrogen bombs had been reached in times of peace, they would no longer be considered binding in times of war, and both sides would set to work manufacturing hydrogen bombs as soon as war broke out, for if one side manufactured the bombs and the other did not, the side that had manufactured them would inevitably be victorious. On geological timescales, Homo sapiens have so far existed only for a very short period, 200,000 years at most. What we have achieved, especially during the last 6,000 years, is something utterly new in the history of the cosmos, so far at least as we are familiar with it. For countless ages, the sun rose and set, the moon waxed and waned, the stars shone in the night, but it was only with the coming of humanity that these things were understood. In the great world of astronomy and the little world of the atom, we have unveiled secrets which might have been thought undiscoverable. In art and literature and religion, some people have shown a capacity for feeling which makes our species worth preserving. Is all this to end? In trivial horror, because so few are able to think of humanity rather than this or that group of humans? Is our race so destitute of wisdom, so incapable of impartial love, so blind even to the simplest dictates of self-preservation, that the last proof of our silly cleverness is to be the extermination of all life on our planet? For it will not only be humans who will perish, but also the animals, whom no one can accuse of communism or anti-communism. I cannot believe that this is to be the end. I would have people forget their differences for a moment and reflect that if they will allow themselves to survive, there is every reason to expect the triumphs of the future to immeasurably exceed the triumphs of the past. There lies before us, if we choose, continual progress in happiness, knowledge, and wisdom. Shall we instead choose death because we cannot forget our differences? I appeal as a human being to human beings. Remember your humanity and forget the rest. If you can do so, the way lies open to a new paradise. If you cannot, nothing lies before us but universal death. Thank you very much for listening. If I've made more videos by the time you're watching this, you can find another one here. If not, please enjoy this empty grey rectangle. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to hear more dramatic bird speeches, and leave your feedback on how I can improve my oratory in the comments below.